steeped in curses? Not really. Not until I took the night shift at the Halberd Museum of History. You'd think a place filled with fossils, ancient manuscripts, and stuffed birds would be the least threatening job in the world. Quiet, predictable, perfect for someone like me. Someone who preferred the hum of a vending machine to the noise of people. But the museum had its own heartbeat after dark. It wasn't loud, not at first. More like a pulse beneath the marble floors, steady and subtle, just enough to make the back of your neck tingle if you stood still too long. I'd been unemployed for 6 months before I found the ad. Night security. Halberd Museum of History. Must be attentive. Must follow protocol. It was the must follow protocol part that should have tipped me off. But when you're broke and half out of options, warnings look like opportunities. The interview was short. The manager, a thin, anxious man named Mr. Hargreaves, barely looked at me. His office was cluttered with stacks of files, all labeled in faded handwriting. Exhibit 9B, Egyptian Hall Archives, Restricted Collections. He asked only one question: can you follow rules no matter what? I said yes. Of course I did. He slid a laminated sheet across the table, read these carefully. Sign at the bottom if you agree. The paper was titled in bold, Night Security Protocol. After hours regulations, there were 10 rules. The museum closes at 9:00 p.m. Begin rounds no earlier than 9:30 p.m. The East Wing, Egyptian antiquities must be checked first. Never end your shift there. Do not look directly at the glass case in Gallery 3B after 11:00 p.m. If you hear footsteps on the second floor while you're alone, do not investigate. Never use the main elevator after midnight. If the phone at the reception desk rings twice, answer it. If it rings more than twice, unplug it. Between 2:30 and 3:00 a.m., remain in the security office with the lights on. The janitor, Mr. Ellis, may greet you during your shift. Do not respond to him after 1:00 a.m. If a visitor appears after closing hours, direct them to the exit without turning your back. Do not, under any circumstances, unlock Gallery 9. At first, I thought it was a joke, a hazing ritual for new hires. But Hargreaves' expression didn't waver. His pen hovered, waiting for my signature. So, I signed. He stood, shook my hand, and said something strange before I left. The museum rewards obedience, Mr. Calloway. It punishes curiosity. That was my first night. The Halberd Museum looked different after dark. During the day, it was all chatter, camera flashes, and bored school tours. At night, the corridors stretched longer, the air heavier. Every step echoed like it didn't want to end. The security office was a small glass enclosure near the main lobby. It had 2 monitors, a radio, and a flickering fluorescent light that buzzed like a trapped fly. The cameras looped through every gallery, though some feeds, like Gallery 9, were permanently blacked out. At 9:30 sharp, I began my rounds. The Egyptian wing came first, as the rules demanded. Rows of sarcophagi, faded scrolls, and mummified cats rested in dusty cases. There was something unnerving about their stillness, how even in death they seemed to watch. As I turned past one display, a slender female mummy, her linen wrapping faintly yellowed. I swore I heard a sigh. It wasn't the sound of air vents or settling wood. It was human, soft, pained. I froze. My flashlight trembled in my hand. The sound didn't repeat, and after a long silence, I forced myself to laugh it off. First night nerves, ancient air pockets, whatever. But when I turned back toward the case, the small placard beneath it had changed. It had read earlier, Priestess Annen, 18th Dynasty, circa 1370 BCE. Now it said, She sees you. My stomach dropped. I blinked, leaned closer, and the text was back to normal. I stood there for a full minute, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. When I finally returned to the security office, I made a note in the logbook, 10:07 p.m. Egyptian hall checked. No activity. I didn't mention the sign. The second rule said never to end your shift in the Egyptian wing. I started to understand why. The place didn't feel empty. It felt occupied. By the time I reached Gallery 3B, the one I was told not to look at after 1100, it was already Tundine 45. The glass case at the center held something I'd never noticed during daytime visits. A mannequin dressed in early 20th century clothing, black suit, bowler hat, gloves. It wasn't labeled, just standing there like it had wandered in by accident. As the clock ticked past 1100, the overhead lights flickered. A whisper slid through the air, faint as breath against glass. "Don't turn around." I froze. The voice came again, closer this time, right behind me. "Don't look at him." My heart thudded so hard it hurt. Every instinct screamed to turn, to check if someone was there. But the rules don't look directly at the glass case after 1100. So I didn't. I backed away slowly, eyes fixed on the marble floor, until I was out of the gallery. The whisper stopped the moment I crossed the threshold. When I checked the camera feed from that room later, the mannequin had moved. It was facing the door. At midnight, I reached the main hall where the grand clock stood. An ornate brass timepiece said to be over 200 years old. It ticked loudly enough to fill the room. That's when I saw the janitor, Mr. Ellis, sweeping near the stairs. He was an older man with tired eyes and a limp that made each step uneven. I'd met him briefly during training. He barely spoke. He looked up at me and smiled faintly. "Quiet night, huh?" "Yeah," I said. "Mostly." He nodded, then went back to sweeping. I noticed he avoided looking toward the darkened Gallery 9 doors. Something in the way he moved, deliberate, cautious, made me uneasy. At 12:15, I went back to the office to check the monitors. The camera in the north corridor glitched for a moment, static flickering across the screen. When it cleared, I saw Ellis standing there, but not sweeping. He was facing the wall, motionless. I called his name over the radio. No response. I looked up from the monitor, ready to head that way, when the phone on the desk rang. 2 sharp rings. Rule 6, if the phone at the reception desk rings twice, answer it. If it rings more than twice, unplug it. I lifted the receiver. "Security office," I said. A pause. Then a whisper. "He's not sweeping anymore." The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a long time, my reflection staring back in the black plastic surface. When I checked the north corridor feed again, Ellis was gone. By 20:30 a.m., I'd locked myself in the office as the rules required. Lights on, door closed. But the monitors, they didn't stop moving. Every few seconds, one camera would flicker to static, then show glimpses of something walking the halls. Not human exactly. Too tall, too fluid. Sometimes it crawled along the walls, limbs bending wrong. And in every frame, wherever it appeared, the mannequin from Gallery 3B stood nearby, just barely visible, watching. The radio hissed to life around 2:45. A voice came through, low and strained. "Rule 8, it said. "Don't talk to me after 1. Then silence. I stared at the radio. My pulse was hammering. That was Ellis' voice, but I'd seen him at midnight, and the clock on the wall ticked past 2:46. The rest of that night, I didn't move from the office. I kept my eyes on the monitors, breathing slow, counting the seconds until dawn. At exactly 4:59 a.m., the main hallway lights flickered to life. The museum systems reset for morning operations. The hum in the floor, the one that had been so steady all night, stopped. It was like the building finally exhaled. When Hargreaves arrived at 7, I was still sitting in the chair, pale, shaking, and clutching the logbook. He looked at me for a long moment and sighed, as if he'd seen this 100 times before. "Did you follow the rules?" he asked. I nodded. He smiled, faint but genuine. "Then you'll be fine." No explanation, no questions. He just walked away. I should have quit then. I thought about it. God, I did. But rent was due, and the job paid well. So I told myself it was fatigue, imagination, stress. I told myself that if I just obeyed the rules, nothing bad would happen. But each night pulled me deeper into the museum's secret rhythm. The second night began the same way, quiet, routine, ordinary. At 9:30 p.m., I started my rounds through the east wing. The sarcophagi seemed heavier somehow, like they'd been moved closer to the glass. I didn't linger. At 10:20 p.m., I passed Gallery 3B again. The mannequin was facing the exit, same as before. This time, I kept my flashlight off. If I couldn't see it, maybe it couldn't see me. I kept thinking about Rule 100. Do not unlock Gallery 9. I'd never even seen anyone go near it. It was sealed by a heavy iron gate. At the far end of the west corridor, the padlock looked centuries old, the kind you'd see in black and white photos. No label, no map listing, just Gallery AX engraved above the archway. Yet sometimes, when I passed it, I'd hear a low tapping from the other side, like fingernails against wood. I asked Hargreaves about it the next morning. His face drained of color. "Don't ask about 9. He turned and walked away. By the fourth night, the museum had begun remembering me. That's the only way I can describe it. The lights dimmed differently when I walked by. The air felt thicker in certain halls. I started hearing my own footsteps echoed back a half-second late, as if something was imitating my walk just behind me. At 11:00 p.m. sharp, while I was checking the north corridor, the power cut out. Total darkness. I froze. Rule 7, between 20:30 and 3:00 a.m. Stay in the security office with lights on. Didn't mention what to do if the lights went out early. My flashlight clicked once, twice dead. Somewhere down the corridor, a door creaked open. I turned toward the sound and saw, for the briefest moment, a shape standing in the faint red glow of the emergency exit sign. It looked human, but too still, like a wax figure that hadn't decided what pose to take yet. The emergency lights flickered. When they came back on, the hallway was empty. I stumbled back to the office, hands shaking so hard I could barely swipe my access card. The monitors were still powered somehow, their green screens glowing faintly. In one of them, the Egyptian wing, a figure moved between the sarcophagi. Not Ellis, not anyone I recognized. It was the mannequin. It stopped mid-frame, turned its head toward the camera, and tilted it slightly, as though listening. Then every monitor went black at once. I told myself I'd quit after that shift. I even wrote the resignation letter and stuffed it in my jacket pocket. But when morning came, Hargreaves wasn't there. The museum doors were already open for the day, tourists flooding in like nothing had happened. And my letter, gone from my pocket. In its place was a folded scrap of paper. "You're part of the collection now." No signature, no handwriting I recognized. On the fifth night, the phone rang again. 2 rings. I answered. This time, the voice wasn't a whisper. It was clear, female, cultured like someone who'd once given museum tours. "Mr. Calloway," she said, pronouncing my name perfectly. "You've been looking where you shouldn't." Who is this? Not important. What matters is that you've seen him move. My throat went dry. The mannequin is not a mannequin. The line crackled. I thought I heard other voices behind hers, overlapping, hundreds of whispers layered on top of each other. "What is he then?" I asked. She hesitated. A curator of sorts. He catalogs those who break the rules. Then the line went dead. That night, I stayed in the office as much as possible, scanning cameras, double-checking locks, avoiding every forbidden area. At 12:58 a.m., the hallway outside filled with slow, dragging footsteps. A knock followed. 3 gentle taps on the glass wall of the office. I turned my flashlight on. Mr. Ellis stood there, mop in hand, head slightly tilted. His eyes were glassy, pupils wide and dark. "Need any help?" he asked softly. I checked the clock. 1:03 a.m. Rule 8, don't respond to him after 1. I swallowed hard, kept my eyes on the desk, said nothing. He smiled faintly, then whispered something I'll never forget. "You're learning." When I finally looked up, he was gone. By the 7th night, the rules had stopped feeling like safety nets. They were cages, guidelines for survival inside something that didn't obey normal logic. I began noticing small details I'd missed before, deep paintings that changed their subjects, shadows that moved opposite their sources, faint murmurs under the ticking of the grand clock. I caught myself whispering the rules under my breath like prayers. East wing first. Never end there. Don't look at 3B after 11. Don't investigate footsteps. Avoid the elevator. 2 rings only. Lights on at 20:30. Don't talk to Ellis. Don't turn your back on visitors. Don't open Gallery 9. Each rule was a thread holding reality together. Break 1 and something frayed. Around 2:00 a.m. that night, the fire alarm blared. The sudden noise was deafening, echoing through every hall. I ran to the main panel. No smoke, no fire, but the alarm code flashing on the display read Zua 9, Gallery 9. My stomach turned cold. I should have stayed in the office. Rule 7 said not to leave after 20:30, but it was still 2 o'clock. Technically, I wasn't breaking anything. I grabbed the flashlight and ran. The west corridor stretched longer than I remembered. The air felt heavier, almost liquid, and every breath tasted metallic. When I reached the gate to Gallery 9, the padlock was open. It hung loose, swinging gently, as if someone had just released it. Behind the bars, I could see faint light flickering. Candlelight, moving shadows. I should have turned back. I should have called Hargreaves, the police, anyone. But curiosity is a cruel thing. I pushed the gate open. The gallery smelled of dust and old paper. Display cases lined the walls, each covered with black cloth. At the far end stood a single pedestal, holding what looked like an ornate mirror. No label, no plaque, just a frame of dark wood carved with symbols I didn't recognize. When I got closer, I realized it wasn't reflecting me. It showed the museum, but not as it was. The halls were darker, the walls cracked and decayed. Figures moved through them. Shadowy outlines of people wandering endlessly. And in the reflection of the office monitor, I saw myself, sitting at the desk, staring into the camera feed. Only it wasn't Liv. It was tomorrow's feed. In it, I wasn't alone. Someone stood behind me. I stumbled back, heart pounding, but the mirror's surface rippled like water, and the figure stepped forward, out of the glass. It was the man from Gallery 3B. Up close, he looked less like a mannequin and more like something unfinished. Skin too smooth, eyes too hollow, movements too deliberate. He tilted his head, studying me like I was another exhibit. Rule 10, he said in a voice that wasn't a voice at all, just thought pressing against my skull. Do not unlock Gallery 9. I ran. I didn't look back until I was inside the security office, slamming the door shut, gasping for breath. The phone rang. Twice. Hands shaking, I picked up. A calm male voice whispered, "He's not done with you yet." When morning came, the museum was spotless. No open locks, no mirror, no evidence. But in my locker, folded neatly beside my uniform, was another note. Finish your shift. Then we'll decide where to place you. And beneath it, a new rule written in the same faded ink 11. If you see your reflection smile before you do, don't move. By the 8th night, I'd stopped pretending I had control over anything inside the Halberd Museum. The air itself had learned my name. Every door hinge whispered when I passed. Every shadow bent slightly toward me, like the building was leaning in to listen. I still followed the rules religiously, but the boundaries between safe and danger were thinning, threads fraying under constant strain. I tried to quit again. I really did. But when I opened the employee exit that evening, I found nothing outside, just blackness, no parking lot, no city lights, no sky. The world ended at the museum's threshold, so I clocked in. That night the phone rang before I even started rounds, 2 polite chimes. "Security office?" I said. The same cultured woman's voice answered. "You opened the gate." My stomach tightened. I closed it again. "It doesn't matter," she said. "Opening invites cataloging. The curator saw you. Once seen, you must be classified." "What does that mean?" "You'll learn," she whispered. "All of you learn." The line clicked dead. On the desk beside the receiver sat a museum brochure. I hadn't left there. Newly printed, glossy, perfect. On the cover, Halberd Museum of History, preserving the past for the future. Inside were photographs of every exhibit. On the last page was me. I was sitting in the security office, smiling faintly at the camera, eyes too dark. Caption, "Night attendant circa 2024. The print date read 1902. I tore it up. The pieces fluttered to the floor, but never landed. They simply vanished mid-air, like the paper had changed its mind about existing. I began my rounds. The museum was unnaturally silent, a kind of silence that presses on the ears until you start hearing things that aren't there. Breathing, tapping, your own heartbeat turned inside out. The Egyptian wing greeted me with the familiar smell of dust and preservation chemicals. The mummy's placard had changed again. She waits for him to finish the list. I hurried out. In Gallery 3B, the mannequin, or whatever it was, had returned to its original position. But now, behind the glass, I could see faint fingerprints on the inside surface, smudged in streaks like someone had been clawing to get out. As I watched, one of the handprints slowly pressed outward from the inside, indenting the glass before fading back. I turned off the flashlight. Darkness was safer than knowing. At midnight I reached the grand clock. It ticked slower than before, each second stretching too long, like time itself was resisting forward motion. Mr. Ellis appeared again, sweeping aimlessly. I checked the clock, 12:58. He looked at me. His mouth opened, and dust poured out instead of words. Then he smiled with teeth too small and too many. The clock chimed once. He disintegrated where he stood, broom clattering to the floor. The dust crawled toward the nearest vent and disappeared. At 1:30 a.m., I heard footsteps overhead, soft, deliberate, pacing directly above the office. Rule 4 said don't investigate footsteps on the second floor while you're alone. So I didn't, but I couldn't block the sound heel-toe, matching my own pulse. Then came a knock on the ceiling. 3 times. A faint voice followed, almost tender. Catalog complete. At 20:29 a.m., I turned on every light in the office and locked the door. Rule 7A lights on between 230 and 300. The second the minute hand hit 20:30, the monitors flickered. Each feed showed a different gallery, only now every case, every statue, every painting contained the same figure. Me. Hundreds of versions of myself standing motionless behind glass, heads tilted, eyes following the camera. On the central monitor, the mannequin from 3B turned to face the lens and gestured. One slow, deliberate beckon, then all the other. Mez mimicked the motion in perfect unison. The overhead light burst. Darkness swallowed the room, except for the pale glow of the screens. I covered my face, breathing through clenched teeth, whispering the rules under my breath. When I looked again, only one feed remained active. Gallery 9. The mirror was back, and someone was standing in front of it. Me. I don't remember leaving the office. One moment I was staring at the screen. The next, I was standing before that cursed mirror again, flashlight trembling in my hand. The reflection didn't match me anymore. The other version was smiling, a wide, lifeless stretch of lips that didn't belong to my face. He raised his hand. I didn't. He mouthed something I couldn't hear. Then the glass rippled, and his fingers pressed outward, meeting mine through the surface. Cold flooded up my arm, spreading like ink through water. Rule 11. The voice said inside my skull. If you see your reflection smile before you do, don't move. But I'd already moved. The reflection grinned wider. The room folded inward, the air compressing until every sound imploded. My vision split. The mirror showing one world, my eyes another. For a moment I saw both, the normal museum and the decayed version, superimposed. In the ruined halls, hundreds of people wandered aimlessly, their faces blank, glassy catalog tags hanging from their necks. Mr. Ellis was among them. So was the woman from the phone. So was I. I woke up at dawn, lying on the marble floor of the main hall. The sun through the skylight looked wrong. Too pale, too thin. Hargreaves stood above me. You broke the rule, he said softly, but not entirely. The curator is merciful to those who try. He helped me up, his touch colder than the floor. You'll keep working, he continued. We all do. The museum needs caretakers, even inside. He handed me a new laminated sheet. The title read, Night Security Protocol Revised. There was only one rule now. 1. Do not leave. When I looked up, Hargreaves was gone. Days don't exist here anymore. The clocks tick but never move past 9 p.m. The monitors show endless loops of visitors who never age, always wandering, always whispering. Sometimes new people arrive, fresh recruits holding crisp uniforms and hopeful smiles. I watch them sign the rules. I want to warn them, but the words die in my throat. Because if I speak without permission, the glass walls tremble. And somewhere in Gallery 9, the curator adds another tag to the collection. Last night, I noticed something new. The cameras have started recording in color again. For months they were black and white, timeless. Now every frame has warmth, light, life. That means the museum is awake, and when it's awake, it's hungry. The mannequin, no, the curator, appears closer to the office each cycle. Soon he'll stand where I sit, and when he does, another face will appear behind the glass, smiling before it should. If anyone finds this recording, burn it. Don't visit the Halberd Museum after dark. And for the love of whatever's left outside these walls, follow the rules. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Voice for more tales that should never be told.